what is Trump doing right now? Is there actually any difference between what he's doing and what the Biden administration was doing, or is it more a question of rhetoric?
If you ask me, well, first of all, we don't fully know because it's Trump. But my guess is he's doing things very differently. He wants to end the war for his own reasons. I mean, Trump's rhetorical position has been very vengeful towards Ukraine and Europe. And he's got he and MAGA, and I'm not defending MAGA, I'm just saying they have a lot of reasons to have very bad associations politically with Ukraine, Zelensky, and the governing class of the EU. And it looks to me like, so far Trump is doing kind of what, unlike the first term, they're actually matching the rhetoric with the action and taking vengeance on Ukraine. And Ukraine has learned how much agency Ukraine actually has in all of this shit.
Don't forget also that we're not talking just about Ukraine in 2020 and the impeachment. We're talking about back when Trump first ran for president, 2015, 2016, Ukraine went after Paul Manafort and bragged about successfully derailing what they thought was derailing Trump's campaign and took a victory lap. And I mean, what they did was just they took a bunch of handwritten pieces of paper and waved it around and said, "This says that Manafort is guilty." And then they bragged. Manafort left the campaign within days, was basically ousted. And
a couple months before the election, and they were bragging openly. At the end of August, bragging openly. We sunk Trump's campaign because we think he's a danger to us. And it did almost sink him.
And the guy who did this, the journalist member of parliament who did this, his name is Leshenko, and he happened to have been on, well, I don't want to say payroll, but he was paid for by Viktor Pinchuk, who he used to pay for Leshenko to fly to different conferences, things like that. And Viktor Pinchuk was the single biggest foreign donor to the Clinton Foundation. So, as so often happens, everything they accuse Trump of, here you go. So, here is Clinton's biggest foreign donor sending his pet journalist to come up with bullshit that in turn hurt Trump from the very beginning. And then Leshenko celebrated it. He took a victory lap until Ukraine won. Until Trump won.
And I should also explain, I mean, people probably know this, but, it's not like Lev and Mark are MAGA fans or Trump fans. It's just that
I got my MAGA hat somewhere.
Yeah, I know you hid it, right? Yeah. You're just not even allowed to say this stuff, what you're saying, because if you do say it, you will be called a Trump fan, a MAGA fan, a Trump enabler, a Putinist.
It's how they cut off. It's how they cut off any dialogue. They just it's classic. They don't want us to talk about. It's how they cut off dissent.
Oh, because I mean, it is foreign interference. Because if we actually talked about and covered it, then the impeachment should have been of the Clinton campaigin.
Do you actually do you get called like a self-loathing Ukrainian or like a sellout or whatever? Like I get called as a Jew. Like, do you get called that as a Ukrainian?
I mean, earlier this year, I had to deal with death threats from around Ukraine. So I get called a lot of different things. I get called a fake Ukrainian. I mean, because, it's... I even remember the New York Times a long time ago. They did this amazing piece, and it was called Fake News, Fake Ukrainians. And it was about a bunch of Ukrainian refugees from the war, the people who fled, whose homes were destroyed, and who were in Holland and who were for the end of the war. And to the New York Times, they were fake Ukrainians. And I remember emailing them. They wound up changing the headline, but I remember I'm like, these are the people who are dying. These are the people who are caught in the worst parts of it. Like, and you're saying that just because they're inconvenient, they're fake Ukrainian. It's I get called a lot of different things. So
I wanted to actually
it comes with the territory.
Right. Speaking of, I was going to say it's a sad day when you get called a fake Ukrainian because it's politically inconvenient. But I have to say this pains me a lot because I'm someone who really was a big supporter of Bernie Sanders. I still think he's one of the best senators out there, honestly, which is maybe damning him with faint praise, but I do. I think on Palestine, he disappointed many people. I still think he's far and away better than other senators on this. But on this issue of Russia, I find him particularly kind of disappointing. I wanted you guys to react to a video that he released. Whenever you want to jump in to kind of correct the record or respond to something, just lift your hand and I'll pause it.
Yesterday, we witnessed an extremely sad moment in American history. We saw the President of the United States aligning himself with the dictator of Russia, Vladimir Putin, to undermine the independence of Ukraine and its democracy.
That's the part. Clear. Okay. That was all true until he said, and its democracy. But yeah, okay, keep going.
Undermine the independence of Ukraine and its democracy. Okay.
It sounds like typical Washington blather to me. Putin's a bad guy. Ukraine's a good guy.
I can't stand Sanders, so I really couldn't care less.
I'm more like you, Katie. I think I'm just very. He's just a general giant disappointment to me.
Yeah, he rolls over like a dog for everything, and I don't mean to insult dogs, but I mean he's doing
what is
the things
he's getting wrong here. Would you say? So we don't have to watch the whole thing.
Right.
Yeah.
What's he getting right? I don't know. Like,
okay, Ukraine is neither independent nor a democracy. So that would be, I don't know, kind of like the entire thing that he's saying. Yeah. Ukraine is a fiefdom of the US, and it certainly has a president who's no longer elected, and who does things like shut down entire branches of churches. So I'm not really sure, like, he might be talking about.
Yeah, I wouldn't wish Ukraine's democracy on anybody. It's tough place.
Yeah.
It's
so like, how do you take serious somebody who's saying this? I mean, that's would be like somebody saying, like North Korea is a thriving democracy. And I mean, like everything after the words North Korea is a thriving democracy doesn't really matter. Okay.
I mean, what is his point of doing that, Katie? You might have more insight. I mean, he's been going around trying to sort of again play the role of I'm not really with the Democratic Party. I'm actually the real authentic left populist. It's the same trick he did 2015, 16, and 20.
I'll tell you what he's doing. I'm sorry. People accuse him of being with Russia. People accuse him of honeymooning in Russia or whatever. So all he does is like a kid at a playground. He's like, I am not.
I actually don't think that's it. I do really think that he thinks he's being on the right side of. I think he's mistaken, but I don't think it's a cynical ass covering move. I think that you can say that about a lot of politicians. I think he does things that I really disappoint me. I don't think that's what this is. I think he honestly thinks in a very general way, Trump is a strong man. He's kind of a bully. He doesn't care about democracy, rule of law, all that stuff. And he thinks that Putin is that too. And he sees them as coming together. And he doesn't, I don't think, really understand. He's been bad on NATO stuff for, since you guys know this, like for a while now.
I think he's always kind of been, he's a Cold War New Dealer kind of.
Yeah, kind of. Even though he was in Nicaragua and he was in the Soviet Union, but I do think he's changed, or he doesn't believe in it anymore the same way. I don't think it's a cynical ass covering thing, but
they accused him of that. He doesn't want to be accused of it.
Right. Maybe, but I mean, I think that he actually thinks that this democracy stuff he's saying is true. I don't think he really understands the nuances of, but what would you say if you were in a room with him? What would you say to Bernie to try to reach him on this?
You don't know what you're talking about. You don't know what you're talking about, Bernie, and talk about oligarchy in America and otherwise shut up.
Right. Not the Russian oligarchy, but the oligarchy.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, really, that's what I would say, because that's one place he can be kind of useful, but we all know what he's going to do with that talk. He's going to bring everybody back to, Kamala Harris 2028 or whatever it's going to be.
And don't call me Bernie pilled. I'm not Bernie pilled. If I were Bernie pilled, people, I'm saying, I know I shouldn't. Brad always says the comments are like the sun. Don't look directly at it. But if I were Bernie pilled, why would I be playing a video of Bernie saying something I think he's wrong about? I simply have a different diagnosis of why he's doing it.
I actually feel kind of bad for being more cynical because a lot of people I really like, yourself included, still have generally very positive things on Bernie. And I get why, because in this political system, which is so fucked up and right wing, to even have somebody like that around, I get it, is good, but where are the results? And what is the political purpose of doing this?
Yeah.
If you ask me, the political purpose is to show is virtue signaling to the center of the Democratic Party, that even though I'm going out to Iowa and kind of doing the left populist thing again, we're still together on the things because Empire is now completely with, I take that back. Empire, a lot of the Empire faction is really with the Democratic Party. And certainly for the Democratic Party, the Empire means everything politically. And this is, Ukraine is a victim of this. Ukraine is a victim of American intrafactional fighting, sent off to war with Russia for one faction and then having their minerals taken away as punishment from the other faction. And Bernie, I feel like, is just virtue signaling to one faction there that he's still on their team.